They started as one of the most influential mod groups of the 60s, and then somehow they morphed into one of the UK's most successful psychedelic bands. It's a classic story, right? A band that burns incredibly bright, and then just like that, they were gone. This is the story of the Small Faces.
And hey, don't just take my word for it. That right there is from Paul Weller of The Jam. For him, they were the most complete band. I mean, that's some seriously high praise coming from a British rock legend. So let's get into what exactly made them so special.
So let's meet the guys. You've got Steve Marriott on vocals and guitar, Ronnie Lane on bass, Ian McLagan on keyboards, and Kenny Jones hitting the drums. And you gotta understand, these guys were pint-sized powerhouses who created a sound that was way, way bigger than they were, mixing up American R&B with this totally unique London swagger.
But you see, to really get the Small Faces, you have to go back in time. You gotta understand the world they came from, which was the super vibrant, sharp-suited, and just unbelievably cool mod scene of mid-60s London.
So in this scene, right, the absolute trendsetters, the guys everyone looked up to, they were called faces. A face was the guy who defined what was cool, and that one little word is the absolute key to understanding the band's brilliant name.
And their name, it was just perfect, wasn't it? On one hand, you've got small. And yeah, that was pretty literal. None of them were exactly giants. But the faces part, that was all about their status. They weren't just part of the scene, they were the scene. Their name was this perfect blend of humility and total confidence.
And man, did they take off. It felt like it happened overnight. Their first single was a hit in '65, they had a couple of huge songs in early '66, and by August of that year, their track All or Nothing was #1 in the UK. They had basically conquered the pop world, but they were just getting started.
Okay, so this is where the story takes a really interesting turn. The band was getting tired of just being a pop hit machine. They wanted to grow, to experiment, and that meant they had to make a really, really big change. Now get this, they were one of the biggest acts in the country, but they were barely seeing any money. They felt totally boxed in by their label and their manager. What they wanted was creative freedom and, to actually get paid for their work. So they did something incredibly gutsy. They just walked away. And honestly, nothing shows this change better than this. On the left, in 1966, you've got the super sharp mods, the leaders of the pack. And just 1 year later, full-on psychedelic trailblazers. This wasn't just about changing their clothes. It was like a public announcement of their new musical direction.
So they get to their new label, Immediate Records, and it's like the floodgates just opened. They were basically told the studio was theirs to do whatever they wanted. They right away put out Here Come the Nice, a song about their drug dealer that somehow snuck past the censors. Then came Itchycoo Park, a worldwide smash that introduced this wild new sound.
So, what was that sound? It was called flanging. It was this mind-bending studio effect that gave the music this swirling, trippy feel. And the Small Faces, they were one of the very first to slap it on a hit single. We're not just talking about great songwriters anymore, we're talking about real sonic innovators.
So all this playing around in the studio, all this creative energy, it was all building up to something huge. It was building towards the band's absolute masterpiece, a record that would become a true landmark of the psychedelic era.
And the result? Their incredible concept album, Ogdens Nut Gone Flake. This wasn't just some critic's favorite, it was a monster. #1 in the UK for 6 straight weeks. This was their moment. This was their magnum opus.
And believe me, this thing was ambitious. It's one of rock's first real concept albums, where the entire second side tells this little fairy tale. Even the album cover was this crazy, completely round sleeve that looked like an old tobacco tin. Everything about it was designed as one complete piece of art.
But here's the strange part. This, their absolute masterpiece, was also the thing that broke them. How does that even happen?
Well, think about it. The album was a work of art in the studio, packed with all these layers and sound effects that you just couldn't replicate live on a stage in 1968. In fact, they only ever performed the whole thing once, for a TV show. And that frustration, not being able to take your greatest creation out on the road, it started to cause some serious problems.
Eventually, the pressure just became too much. But the end of the Small Faces, it wasn't so much an ending as it was a shattering. And the pieces that were left went on to become even bigger deals on their own.
The drummer,
Kenny Jones, he really nailed it. He wished they could have held it together, like The Who always did. But Steve Marriott, the frontman, he just felt like they'd hit their peak. So at a New Year's Eve gig in 1968, he literally walked off the stage mid-song and just said, "I quit."
But just look what happened next. It's wild. Steve Marriott immediately goes and forms the hard rock supergroup Humble Pie. And the other three guys? They team up with a young Rod Stewart and a guitarist named Ronnie Wood, and they become the Faces. It's incredible, right? Two absolute monster bands were born directly from the ashes of the Small Faces.
So even though their time in the spotlight was pretty short, the influence of the Small Faces, man, it just echoed through the decades of British music.
I mean, you can literally draw a straight line from their raw energy to bands like the Sex Pistols. You can hear their DNA all over the mod revival, led by The Jam. And then you have the huge Britpop bands of the 90s, like Oasis and Blur, who all pointed back to the Small Faces as a core influence. They're just everywhere. And eventually, the official world caught up. They got a Lifetime Achievement Award in '96, a permanent marker on Carnaby Street in 2007, and finally the big one, a well-deserved spot in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2012.
And there it is, a permanent tribute, right in the heart of London's Carnaby Street. It just feels right, doesn't it? A lasting honor for a band that didn't just follow a scene, they built it.
So just think about that for a second. Their whole fame really lasted just 4 years, from '65 to '69. And yet, their legacy has been shaping British rock for more than half a century. It really makes you wonder, when it comes to impact versus time, has any band ever done it better?